That she was being followed filled her with terror. She ran home and locked herself in her hut. After a few minutes, she heard a loud bang on her door, sending shivers down her spine. She feared that the evil creature was after her. She kept silent as the banging continued for a few minutes and then stopped. Still shaking in fear, she remained in her hut when she suddenly heard a voice speaking behind her. Once upon a time, in the busy Olo market, lived a popular hair braider who was known as the Silent Braider. One morning, the villagers arrived at the market and found her sitting in a corner, braiding the hair of a woman. They were all shocked, as no one in the village had ever seen her before. However, the woman never uttered a word to anyone, so the people named her the Silent Braider, believing she was deaf and mute. Shockingly, on her first day in the market, several women stood in a long queue, waiting to get their hair braided by the strange woman. She braided their hair so beautifully that her unique style attracted even more women to her little corner. The other hair braiders in the village became jealous, as their customers no longer came to them. They all preferred to have their hair braided by the Silent Braider, despite the long wait. This made the other braiders wonder who she was and where she had come from. One day, a hair braider named Nonso decided to stay late into the night to follow the Silent Braider home. Nonso was curious to know where she lived, so she waited in the market, hoping to trail her. However, after a few hours of waiting, Nonso slipped into a deep sleep. When she woke up, she realized the Silent Braider had already left. Disappointed, she wondered when she had dozed off. Determined, Nonso decided to try again the next night. That night, she returned home feeling dejected and went straight to bed. In her dream, she saw the Silent Braider hysterically shouting at a group of people locked up in a cage. Nonso woke up terrified, recognizing many of the villagers as those whose hair had recently been braided by the Silent Braider. She was confused and wondered what her dream meant. The next morning, she arrived at the market and saw a group of women waiting to have their hair braided. She felt a strong urge to warn them about her dream, but when she did, they dismissed her, assuming she was jealous of the Silent Braider's growing popularity. Feeling discouraged, Nonso retreated to her corner, troubled by what had just happened. As she watched the Silent Braider continue her work, Nonso began to doubt herself, thinking that perhaps she was indeed just envious. The thought troubled her so much that she decided to leave the village and move to another market. Meanwhile, the Silent Braider's queue continued to grow. A young woman named Uchi, who had been waiting for hours, finally sat down to have her hair braided. She was new to the village and had been searching for a good braider when she was directed to Olo Market. Upon arrival, she was surprised to see a long queue in front of just one woman, while the other braiders sat idly. This seemed odd to her, but she decided to wait her turn. After a few hours, it was finally Uchi's turn. As the Silent Braider worked on her hair, Uchi drifted into a deep sleep and dreamt that she was being dragged into a cage by the Silent Braider. She struggled and managed to break free, running away. As she fled, she saw many people locked up in a large cage. Terrified, she suddenly woke up from her slumber. She had never felt such fear in her entire life. Shaken, she reached for her purse and pulled out a small mirror to look at her hair, only to catch sight of a terrifying monster standing behind her. Terrified, Uchi screamed at the top of her lungs and stood up in fear. The people around her were startled, wondering what had happened. But before she could explain, the Silent Braider disappeared into thin air. Everyone gasped in shock as they witnessed her vanishing. The villagers were petrified, questioning who she truly was. Uchi, still shaking, explained what she had seen. The people could not believe that an evil creature had been braiding their hair for months. Determined to get to the root of the matter, Uchi looked around and saw the silent braider's wooden comb on the ground. She picked it up and examined it, noticing strange symbols engraved on it. Sensing something unnatural, she decided to seek guidance from a powerful woman in the village. When she arrived at the woman's hut, holding the comb in her hand, the woman's eyes widened in shock. She explained that the markings were symbols of a dark spirit that trapped its victims and subjected them to pain and suffering. She revealed that anyone whose hair had been touched by the comb would live a life filled with misery and misfortune. Terrified, Uchi asked if there was a way to reverse the curse. The powerful woman told her that the only way to break it was to find the first person in the village whose hair had been braided with the comb. Once found, the comb should be used to loosen that person's braids, which would break the curse and set everyone free. Armed with this knowledge, Uchi set out to trace the comb's usage. She spoke with market vendors and other braiders, but no one could recall the first person who had sat in the silent braider's chair. Disheartened, Uchi decided to return home, but as she walked, she had a strange feeling that she was being followed. Filled with terror, she ran home and locked herself in her hut. After a few minutes, she heard a loud bang on her door. Shivers ran down her spine as she feared the evil creature was after her. She kept silent as the banging continued for a few minutes, and then stopped. Still shaking in fear, she remained in her hut until she suddenly heard a voice behind her. Turning in terror, she saw a pale-looking woman standing right behind her. "Who are you? How did you get into my hut?" Uchi asked, her voice trembling. The pale woman introduced herself as Neka, explaining that she had entered through an open window. "What do you want from me?" Uchi asked fearfully. Neka revealed that she was the person Uchi had been searching for. She recounted how her life had fallen apart after the silent braider worked on her hair. Her children had all fallen sick and died, and her husband left her, believing she was cursed. Little did she know that the silent braider was the cause of her misfortune. Overjoyed to have finally found the person she had been looking for, Uchi convinced Neka to accompany her to the powerful woman's hut. When they arrived, the powerful woman took the evil comb and began to loosen Neka's braids. As she did, the evil creature appeared, but the powerful woman began chanting incantations. With each stroke of the comb through Neka's hair, the creature groaned in extreme pain. Uchi watched as the evil being dissipated into thin air. When the last braid was loosened, the powerful woman smiled and declared that the village was now free from the creature's grasp. The spirits of those who had been trapped were released, and the people rejoiced, celebrating their freedom. Olo Market, once shrouded in fear and misery, flourished again. The other hair braiders, who had been overshadowed by the silent braider, regained their customers, and life returned to normal. The lesson from this story is that blindly following trends without questioning or understanding them can be dangerous. We should all learn to be discerning and seek knowledge instead of blindly following the crowd. Additionally, we should trust our instincts and not dismiss warning signs, as our intuition serves as a valuable guide against impending danger. I hope you enjoyed the story. Like, subscribe, and leave a comment. It helps our channel grow. See you in our next story. Bye.